surface, on the outside.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you a question about that came up for me when I wrote Lost and Found, and when I traveled around and went on tour about it. I found that talking about money was very difficult, not for me at that point, because I became so interested in money after this that I would talk to people in the grocery store. So, what do you think about money? And tell me about your relationship with money. And how much money do you make? And do you and your spouse talk about? I just became fascinated with it like I became fascinated with food as a point of departure, so to speak, or as a doorway into what we believe about scarcity and deprivation and what we're allowed to have and be. And when I first started talking about food, which was in 1978, people didn't want to talk to me except for those people who were willing to talk to me. With the rollers in my hair, they were willing to talk to me, but most people, when I would say, it's not about willpower, and it's not about force and deprivation, it's about using it as a doorway into who you are, really. There was no, it's about willpower and it's about calories. And with money, I found that I almost had turned back the clock 30 years, and so that it was a similar, no, I'm not talking about money. Sort of like with me. There's spirituality and then there's money. So I'm wondering what you think about that. Just in terms of why money is such a difficult subject, really, to bring. Why people are more willing to talk about their sex lives. And in great detail, mind you. And what they've eaten and not eaten. And binged and not beaten, including things like stealing food and all of that, rather than talk about money. So I'm curious about what you think about that.
Well, it is true that for many people, the mention of it can bring about an immediate loss of awareness, even in people who otherwise have already embraced awareness in many aspects of their lives. And still there remains that there's a fear that coagulates around that money idea, and that's the fear, I would say, of survival.
Yeah.
And there is also an egoic trait that's one of the most essential traits of the ego, not enough.
Yes.
Not enough is one of the most deep-seated ego traits. Every ego has that. And for many people, the not enough refers to money. It could refer to many other things. Not enough food, not enough whatever. The ego is never feels it has enough.
Yeah.
And that particularly manifests in the area of money, because money can buy, is neutral, but it can become anything in the world of form almost.
Yes, right.
And so it triggers the insufficiency, the feeling of not enough of the ego.
Yeah.
That's something, and it's not, it could also be anything related to money. It could be talking about buying a house or something like that, and then there are problems with it. You're talking to your realtor, and upsets quickly. I often see how people lose consciousness. The moment something like that happens, anything that is connected with money in some way, whether it's a property or whatever, when something, it's immediate loss of awareness. But that's, once you know that, it can be helpful then, because next time it happens, before you pick up the phone to call your bank or your investment fund. I don't know if anybody still has money in investment funds, but you can see if you can remain conscious and real, and instead of losing awareness. Once you know what, there may be other areas in your life that pull you into unconsciousness, and once you know that, So it could be a person, it could be the mention of one person that from your past, your father who did something, or your ex-wife, or whoever, and the mention of that person can pull you into deep unconsciousness and feelings of anguish or anger or whatever it is. Once you know what it is in your life that still has that power to pull you in, you almost play with it. You can start thinking about it and see if you can stay conscious. You can talk to a friend about it and see if you can stay present even while you talk, which often means just feel the inner body while you talk about it. While you talk about whatever it is, money, feel the aliveness in the inner energy field. Because ultimately it's, when we say it makes you unconscious, it means it draws you back completely into the reactive mind. Right. So it draws you back completely into thought. So because money is a very abstract thing, it's really is a thought form that everybody subscribes to, in the same way as a possession. Let's say I own this house. Ownership of something is a thought form. It has no actual meaning in outer reality. It's quite meaningless. You cannot own anything. It's quite absurd. But I'm not saying abolish ownership, but I'm saying recognize that ultimately it's quite meaningless. That's why I mention it I believe in the New Earth. In the New Earth I say, if you walk along Manhattan and you look at a huge skyscraper and you say, this is mine, I own this building, either you are insane or you're extremely wealthy and you actually do own it. But in either case it makes little difference. The only difference is, if you're insane, nobody else believes it. If you are wealthy and you actually do own it, everybody else believes that too. And they even give you a piece of paper to certify that they also believe it. That's all it is. That's the only difference, is you only believe it, you're insane, but others believe it too, you own it. And that shows you the ultimate unreality of the whole concept of ownership.
Yeah.
And especially, when it comes to land, it becomes even more absurd. How can you own a piece of the planet and say, that's mine? That's why it was incomprehensible to the inhabitants of North America, whom they called Indians at the time, but the Westerners came, the Europeans came, and they said you could actually own land, and they couldn't understand what that means. How can you own? You can feel you're one with it, or that you belong to the land. They could understand that, but that you own it, they couldn't understand, because it's a myth. But for the time being, that's how this society operates. And I wouldn't say, let's abolish ownership. That may come at some point once human beings develop and more humans awaken out of identification with form. Then at some point, what communists wanted to bring about without a change in consciousness, and so they created hell, what they wanted to bring about can actually and probably will come about when there has been a change in consciousness.
Yes, right. Yes, because it seems that as long as we identify with form, then we identify with owning a form.
Yes.
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 Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you were saying that with money, it comes from that feeling of not enough, the egoic stance of not enough, which makes a lot of sense, because in those first few days after we lost our money, I would pick up a glass or a teacup and I would just say, oh, a teacup. Here it is. Water. Here it is. And there was this sense of abundance, of having so much because of just being able to drink water. So at first I did start focusing on the forms, like trees and birds that I could hear. And then also it became a sense of inner aliveness, and then just feeling it everywhere.
Yes, the appreciation of the little things comes with that.
Yes.
The appreciation of the little. This happened when I first awoke after the change that happened to me that night. Everything was so precious that I looked at, that the little seemingly insignificant objects that were lying around the room, there was a preciousness to them and a beingness to them. And so there was just an honoring of that for the first time I experienced, and I still often have that.
Yes.
And that's because you're surrounded, of course, in your everyday life continuously by all these seemingly insignificant things.
Yes.
But once you pay attention, it's actually quite beautiful and profound.
Yes.
And then even gratitude can arise for the seemingly most insignificant thing.
Yes, yes. I'd walk out to my studio in those first few days and I'd realize, wow, I've been walking back and forth and I haven't heard the birds singing for I can't even remember how long. And suddenly, the very fact that there were birds was an amazing thing. And I felt like I had been walking sort of as a ghost and in a ghost realm in a way, and just walking through or past objects, and they became objects, things to get through and get beyond so I could get to the next place.
Yes, that's a normal consciousness.
Yes,
yes.
right.
Yes, the normal consciousness says to the present moment, get out of the way.
Yes, right. Get out of the way.
Which really comes down to you're saying to life, which is always now, get out of the way, I have something better in mind.
Yes, right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course that something better never arrives.
Yes.
Because it's in your mind.
Yeah. Right. Yes. And that's in many ways, to bring it back to food, is the same thing that we experience, or that I experienced when I wanted to eat, when I wasn't hungry. I have something better in mind than what's here.
Ah, yes. Also applies there.
Yes.
Yes.
Right. So there's that connection too.
Yes.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yes, I know. It is amazing, really. When I think about how compulsive eating or obsessions are usually handled or dealt with as something to get out of the way.
Yes.
I just need to fix this and get it out of the way so I can get on with it.
Yes.
Instead of being with, oh, there's this.
Yes.
Yes, right.
One last thing, perhaps.